Have you ever thought about how a city can rise again after being reduced to nothing in a single moment? In August 1945, Hiroshima was changed forever. One flash of light, one deafening explosion, and in an instant, life as people knew it was gone. Buildings collapsed, families were torn apart, and silence fell over a city that once pulsed with life. For most, it would have felt like the end of everything. And yet, it was not the end. What happened in the years after Hiroshima is one of the most powerful examples of human resilience. Survivors, ordinary men, women, and children, chose not to surrender to despair. They faced grief, loss, and unimaginable pain. But step by step, they began to rebuild. They cleared rubble with their bare hands. They planted seeds in soil that had been scorched. They rebuilt schools so children could dream again. Slowly, from ashes, hope began to grow. Today, Hiroshima is not only a thriving city, but also a global symbol of peace. It stands as a reminder that even in the darkest chapters of history, there is light to be found, if people have the courage to look for it. But this story isn't just about Japan. It's about us, because all of us, at some point, face moments that feel like endings. Moments when everything falls apart. And in those moments, the question is the same. Will we let despair define us? Or will we choose resilience? In this video, we'll uncover how the people of Hiroshima found strength after devastation, and what their journey can teach us about facing our own struggles today. When the bomb fell on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, the city was home to roughly 350,000 people. Within seconds, over 70,000 lives were gone. By the end of the year, tens of thousands more had died from burns, radiation sickness, and injuries. Entire neighborhoods were flattened, schools were gone, hospitals destroyed, and families separated forever. Survivors described the city as a sea of rubble, fire, and silence. Imagine walking through your hometown and finding nothing left. No familiar streets, no homes, no shops, just ruins and ash. For the people of Hiroshima, this was not a nightmare. It was their reality. And yet, within that devastation, something remarkable happened. People chose not to give up. In the days after the bombing, survivors, known in Japan as hibakusha, had every reason to collapse into despair. Many had lost everything: family members, possessions, health, and even hope for the future. Radiation left burns that scarred their skin and illnesses that would haunt them for decades. Yet, instead of giving in to hopelessness, small acts of courage began to appear. Neighbors shared the little food and water they could find. Mothers who had lost their children still comforted other children wandering in shock. Doctors, many themselves injured, worked tirelessly in makeshift shelters to save lives with almost no supplies. It is in these small, almost invisible moments that resilience takes root. Resilience is not a sudden surge of strength. It is built in quiet choices, in the decision to take one more step forward, even when everything inside you says stop. By 1946, just a year later, Hiroshima had already begun to rebuild. People cleared rubble with their bare hands. Brick by brick, temporary houses were set up for families. Children returned to makeshift classrooms, sometimes under open skies, with little more than a chalkboard balanced on stones. But they studied, because knowledge meant hope for a future beyond destruction. The Japanese concept of ganbaru, to endure, to persist, to do one's best even in the face of impossible odds, became the spirit of Hiroshima. This wasn't about denying pain. Survivors carried deep scars, both visible and invisible. But through Ganbaru, they chose to keep moving forward. Consider the story of Shigeaki Mori, a boy who was just 8 years old when the bomb fell. He lost classmates and neighbors in an instant. But instead of letting grief consume him, he grew up determined to honor those who had died. As an adult, Mori spent decades researching the stories of victims, Japanese and even American prisoners of war who were in Hiroshima that day. His work helped give names and dignity back to the dead. His life became a testament to resilience, turning personal tragedy into a mission of remembrance and peace. Or think of the survivors who planted trees in the ruins of the city. At first, it seemed impossible that anything could grow in soil poisoned by radiation. But in time, green shoots appeared. Today, Hiroshima is filled with trees and gardens, many of them descendants of those first resilient seeds. Nature itself became a symbol of renewal, mirroring the resilience of its people. As Hiroshima rebuilt, it did not just aim to return to what it was before. The city became a living message to the world. In 1949, just 4 years after the bombing, the Japanese government declared Hiroshima a city of peace. Peace parks, memorials, and museums were created, not to dwell in bitterness, but to remind future generations of the consequences of war and the urgent need for peace. Every year on August 6, thousands gather at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial to remember and to reaffirm a commitment to never repeat such devastation. But beyond ceremonies and symbols, resilience lived in everyday lives. Survivors found ways to laugh again, to marry, to have children. Teachers inspired students to dream of becoming doctors. Engineers, artists, shopkeepers reopened small stores. Slowly, the rhythm of daily life returned, carrying with it the heartbeat of a city that refused to be defined by tragedy. Resilience after Hiroshima was not easy. Many survivors faced discrimination. The word hibakusha carried a stigma, as people feared radiation sickness was contagious or hereditary. Survivors were often denied jobs, marriage opportunities, and fair treatment. Yet even under this social weight, many hibakusha shared their testimonies publicly, determined that their pain would not be forgotten, and that it would serve as a warning for humanity. This courage, to turn suffering into testimony, is itself a form of resilience. By speaking out, the survivors transformed their wounds into wisdom for future generations. So what can we learn from Hiroshima's story? Perhaps the most important lesson is this: resilience is not about avoiding suffering. It is about facing suffering and choosing to create meaning from it. The people of Hiroshima did not erase their pain. They carried it, and yet they built something new with it. They showed the world that even in the darkest ashes, life can be renewed. For you, listening today, the ruins of Hiroshima may feel distant, but think about the times in your own life when everything seemed broken. When failure, heartbreak, or loss left you standing in the ruins of your own world. In those moments, resilience doesn't come as a sudden burst of strength. It comes in choosing to take the next small step, in planting seeds even when the ground feels barren, in believing that tomorrow can hold something worth living for. Hiroshima teaches us that resilience is not about what happens to us. It's about what we choose to do next. It's about finding strength not just for ourselves, but for the generations that will follow. And it's about turning tragedy into a legacy of hope. When we arrive at the end of Hiroshima's story, we are left with a truth that stretches beyond history, beyond geography, and beyond generations. The resilience of the Japanese people after Hiroshima is not simply a tale of recovery. It is a lesson about the very essence of the human spirit. It shows us that even when the world around us collapses, there is still something within us that can rise. So, what lessons can we carry with us today? The first lesson is this: resilience begins with the smallest choices. In Hiroshima, survivors did not have the luxury of great plans or abundant resources. They started with nothing, and yet, one brick at a time, one seed planted, one child taught, life began again. Too often, when we face hardship in our own lives, we wait for the big solution, the one moment that will fix everything. But true resilience does not work that way. It begins with one small step. If Hiroshima could be rebuilt from ashes with bare hands, then your own life, no matter how broken it feels, can also be rebuilt, one act of courage at a time. The second lesson is that meaning can emerge from suffering. Survivors of Hiroshima could have chosen silence. They could have carried their pain privately, allowing their tragedy to disappear into the shadows of history. But instead, many chose to speak. They shared their experiences with future generations, warning the world about the devastating cost of war. In doing so, they gave their suffering a purpose that extended beyond themselves. They turned wounds into wisdom, and tragedy into testimony. In your own life, the pain you carry may feel meaningless at times. But when you share your story, when you transform what hurt you into something that helps others, your suffering can also find purpose. The third lesson is that resilience grows stronger in community. Alone, one person can endure, but together, people can rebuild entire worlds. Hiroshima became a symbol of peace not because of one survivor's effort, but because a community of survivors supported one another, lifted one another, and built a new future side by side. In our own lives, we sometimes feel like we must carry our struggles alone. But healing often happens in connection, with family, with friends, with communities who remind us that we are not meant to walk through pain by ourselves. Think about your own struggles for a moment. Maybe you have faced failure that left you doubting yourself. Maybe you've experienced heartbreak that shattered your confidence. Maybe you've lost something, or someone, so important that life itself felt empty. In those moments, you may have felt like Hiroshima, reduced to ruins, silent, hopeless. But Hiroshima teaches us this: ruins are not the end. They are the beginning of something new. If you have the courage to take the next step, resilience is not about avoiding pain. It's about shaping pain into something meaningful. It's about saying, yes, this happened to me. Yes, it hurt, but I will not let it be the final word in my story. That is the gift Hiroshima offers us, a reminder that even in devastation, life has the power to rise again. And so, the challenge for you is simple. How will you choose to rise from your own ashes? Will you let despair define you? Or will you plant seeds of hope in scorched ground? Will you carry your scars as chains? Or will you wear them as reminders of strength? The people of Hiroshima chose resilience. And so can you. Hiroshima today is not just a city. It is a symbol that destruction is never stronger than the will to live. A symbol that peace can emerge from war. And most importantly, a symbol that resilience is a choice available to each of us. Every single day. If this story has touched you, if it has reminded you of your own strength, I invite you to walk this journey with us. Subscribe to this channel, because here we explore stories of resilience, healing, and meaning from across the world. Together, we can learn from the past, grow in the present, and inspire a future filled with balance, simplicity, and purpose. Remember, Your next chapter does not begin with what you have lost. It begins with the choice you make right now. Choose resilience, choose hope, and never forget, as Hiroshima has shown us, even the darkest night can lead to a sunrise.